Galileo Galilei, the man who is often referred to as the father of modern astronomy, the father of modern physics, and the father of modern science. He was an Italian physicist, astronomer, astrologer, and philosopher. Galileo is famous for his improvements to the telescope as well as a variety of astronomical observations. His achievements also include the first systematic study of uniformly accelerated motion. In this video, we will see the entire biography of Galileo Galilei. So please watch till the end.
And don't forget to like and subscribe.
Galileo was born on February 15, 1564 in Pisa in the Tuscany region of Italy. He was the first of six children born to Vincenzo Galilei and Giulia Ameniti. Vincenzo's hometown was Florence. He was a famous music theorist and a fine flute player. He used to carry out experiments on strings to support his musical theories. Vincenzo and Giulia had made their home in the countryside near Pisa. Galileo spent his early years with his family in Pisa. When Galileo was 8 years old, he started living with Muzio Tendelli, who was related to his mother. Meanwhile, his family returned to Florence. After 2 years, Galileo left Pisa to join his family in Florence. He was tutored by Jacopo Borghini. Now our son is old enough to be educated in a monastery, Galileo's father said to his mother. In my opinion, we should send him to Camaldoli's monastery at Vallombrosa. That's a good idea, nodded his mother. And so Galileo was sent to the Camaldoli's monastery situated on a magnificent forest hillside 33 kilometers southeast of Florence. The young Galileo found the life at the monastery an attractive one, since it combined the solitary life of the monk. Soon he became a novice, intending to join the order, but Galileo's father Vincenzo was of a different opinion. I want my eldest son to become a medical doctor, he said. Galileo knew that his father would never be pleased by his decision to join the order. So he returned from Vallombrosa to Florence and continued his schooling there. In 1581, Galileo's father again sent him to Pisa, this time to enroll for a medical degree at the University of Pisa. Galileo obeyed his father, although he never liked the idea of a medical career. He would never take medical studies seriously. However, he was deeply interested in attending courses on mathematics and natural philosophy, the subject of his real interest. In the year 1582-83, the famous mathematician of the Tuscan court, Ostilio Ricci, taught a course on Euclid's element at the University of Pisa. Galileo attended this course. After this, he invited Ricci to home to meet his father. Ricci tried to persuade Vincenzo to allow Galileo to study mathematics. This is the subject of his real interest, said Ricci, but Vincenzo did not like the idea and resisted strongly. This emotional tug of war between the father and the son continued for some time. Eventually, the father had to give way a little and Galileo was able to study the work of Euclid and Archimedes from the Italian translation. By 1585, he gave up his medical course and left without completing his degree. Along the same time, Galileo began teaching mathematics. During the summer of 1586, he taught at Vallombrosa, and in the year he wrote his first scientific book, The Little Balance, La Balancita, which describes Archimedes' method of finding the specific gravities, that is, the relative densities of substances using a balance. In 1589, he was appointed to the chair of mathematics in Pisa. Hardly 2 years has passed when his father died. Being the eldest son, Galileo has to provide financial support for his family. As a professor of mathematics at Pisa, he was not well paid. So he decided to search for a better job. Luck favored him, and in 1592 he was appointed as the professor of mathematics at the University of Padua. There he was offered thrice the salary of what he had received at Pisa. On 7th December 1592, Galileo gave his inaugural lecture, and with this started a period of 18 years at the University of Padua, which he later described as the happiest phase of his life. At the University of Padua, Galileo's job was to teach geometry, mechanics, and astronomy. He gave 3 public lectures in connection with the appearance of a new star, now known as the Kepler supernova. He argued against Aristotle's view of astronomy and natural philosophy. Aristotle believed that all changes in the heavens had to occur in the lunar region close to the Earth. Galileo used parallax arguments to prove that the new stars could not be close to the Earth. Meanwhile, he was resumed his work on the theory of motion in 1602. Over the next 2 years, he studied the inclined planes and the pendulum, and formulated the correct law of falling bodies. According to him, a projectile follows a parabolic path. However, his findings would not be published for another 35 years. In May 1609, Galileo received a letter from Paolo Serfi, a fine mathematician, telling him about a spyglass that a Dutchman had shown in Venice. In April 1610, Galileo wrote in the Starry Messenger, Siderius Nunius, about 10 years ago, a report reached my ears that a certain Fleming had constructed a spyglass by means of which visible object, though very distant from the eye, observers were distinctly seen as if nearby. Of this truly remarkable effect, several experiences were related, to which some persons believed while others denied them. A few days later, the report was confirmed by a letter I received from a Frenchman in Paris, Jacques Badover, which caused me to apply myself wholeheartedly to investigate means by which I might arrive at the invention of a similar instrument. This I did soon afterwards, my basis being the doctrine of refraction. Galileo applied his own technical skills and began to make a series of telescopes. The optical performance of these telescopes was much better than that of the Dutch instrument. His first telescope was made from available lenses and gave a magnification of about 4 times. Gradually, he learned how to grind and polish his own lenses. As a result, by August 1609, he had an instrument with a magnification of around 8 or 9. In 1610, Galileo published an account of his telescopic observations of the moons of the Jupiter. The next year, he visited Rome in order to demonstrate his telescope to the influential philosophers and mathematicians their own eyes the reality of four moons of Jupiter. Galileo could easily see the commercial and military applications of his telescope for ships at sea. So he gave the sole right for the manufacture of telescope to the Venetian Senate. In return, they gave him a large increase in his salary. Galileo made a long series of observations with his telescope. The astronomical discoveries he made with his telescope were described in a short book called The Starry Messengers. Galileo observed that Venus exhibits a full set of phases similar to that of the Moon. The heliocentric model of the solar system developed by Copernicus predicted that all phases would be visible since the orbit of Venus around the Sun would cause its illuminated hemisphere to face the Earth when it was on the opposite side of the Sun and to face away from the Earth when it was on the Earth side of the Sun. In contrast, the geocentric model of Ptolemy predicted that only crescent and new phases would be seen since the orbit of Venus around the Sun was thought to remain between the Sun and Earth during its orbit around the Earth. Galileo's observations of the phases Venus proved that it orbited the Sun. Other observations made by Galileo, including the observation of sunspots. He was one of the first Europeans to observe sunspots. He reported these in Discuss of Floating Bodies, which he published in 1612, and more fully in Letters on the Sunspots, which appeared in 1613. Galileo was also the first to report lunar mountains and craters. This led him to conclusion that the moon was rough and uneven, and just like the surface of the earth itself, rather than a perfect sphere as Aristotle had claimed. Galileo also observed the planet Neptune in 1612, but did not realize that it was a planet and took no particular notice of it. It appears in his notebooks as one of many unremarkable dim stars. Galileo determined the correct mathematical law for acceleration. The total distance covered starting from rest is proportional to the square of the time. He also concluded that objects retain their velocity unless a force, often friction, acts upon them. Galileo's principle of inertia stated a body moving on a level surface will continue in the same direction at the constant speed unless distributed. This principle was incorporated into Newton's first law of motion, that is, stable equilibrium. Galileo pioneered the use of quantitative experiments so that the results could be analyzed with mathematical precision. He also attempted to measure the speed of light. However, he himself concluded that this measurement technique was too imprecise to accurately determine its value. In his experiment, Galileo climbed up a hill and had an assistant to climb another hill. Both of them carried lanterns with shutters initially closed. Galileo would open his shutter, and as soon as his assistant saw the flash, he would open his shutter. Galileo then measured the time. Knowing the time intervals and the separation between the hills, he determined the apparent speed of light. In 1622, Galileo wrote his first book, The Assayer Segator, which was approved and published in 1623. The work describes Galileo's new scientific method and contains a famous quote regarding mathematics. Philosophy is written in this grand book, the universe, which stands book cannot be understood unless one first learns to comprehend the language and read the characters in which it is written. It is written in the language of mathematics, and its characters are triangle, circle, and other geometrical patterns, without which it is impossible to understand a single word of it. Without this, one is wandering in a dark labyrinth. In 1624, Galileo developed first known example of the microscope. By now, Galileo's health was poor with frequent bouts of severe illness. Therefore, even though he began to write his famous dialogue in 1624, it took him 6 years to complete the work. Galileo attempted to obtain permission from Rome to publish the dialogue in 1630, but this was not easy. Eventually, he got permission from Florence and but not Rome. In February 1632, Galileo published dialogue concerning the two chief systems of the world, Ptolemaic and Copernican. It takes the form of a dialogue between Salviati, who argues for the Copernican system, and Simplicio, who is an Aristotelian philosopher. The climax of this book is an argument by Salviati that the earth moves, which was based on Galileo's theory of tides. But quite unfortunately, Galileo's theory of tides was entirely false. Shortly after, the book was banned and Galileo was ordered to stand trial on suspicion of heresy in Rome. He was ordered imprisoned. The sentence was later commuted to house arrest. Publication of any of his work was forbidden, including any he might write in future. It was under this house arrest that Galileo dedicated his time to one of his finest work, Two New Sciences. In it, he summarized work he had done some 40 years earlier. On the two new sciences, now called kinematics and strength of materials. This book has been greatly praised by both Sir Isaac Newton and Sir Albert Einstein. As a result of this work, Galileo is often called the father of modern physics. Galileo died from natural causes on January 8, 1642. According to his will, he wished to be buried beside his father in the family tomb in the Basilica of Santa Croce. But his relatives feared that this would provoke opposition from the church. Therefore, his body was concealed. Galileo was reburied on sacred ground at Santa Croce in 1737. He was formally rehabilitated in 1741 after Pope Benedict XIV authorized the publication of Galileo's complete scientific work. If you have seen the video till here, then you must have enjoyed the video.
And don't forget to like and subscribe.